All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, I'm on record as stating that Aaron Rodgers is without a doubt in my mind the most talented quarterback that I've ever seen. He's not the best quarterback that I've ever seen. The best quarterback that I've ever seen is Joe Montana. But it's becoming clearer and clearer to me that Aaron Rodgers is, as Skip Bayless first asserted, the LeBron James of the NFL. He's someone who thinks that he can run the offense, run the defense, be the head coach, get people fired, be passive aggressive, and now he's starting to be the one who's going to come under fire. Because whoever the Green Bay Packers front office chooses to hire, Aaron Rodgers is going to have to make it work next year. And the excuses are running out for Aaron. He's already 35 years old. To be quite honest with you, he does not strike me as somebody who's going to be trying to play until he's 45 like Tom Brady. I think already Aaron is getting tired of a lot of the ancillary distractions from his family, from former teammates, etc., who are trying to come at his head. Either way, the Green Bay Packers front office is going to have to find one of these young wonderkins, like a McVay out there with the Los Angeles Rams, or like the coach Nagy with the Chicago Bears. They need a young genius who can help rejuvenate Aaron. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Welcome back to First Take, coming to you live from above the Speedport District at Pier 17, brought to you by Chase. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers fell to 4-7-1 following their third straight loss. Head coach Mike McCarthy was fired shortly after the game. Damian Woody is here. What's going on, Damian?
Good morning, good morning.
How much?
Damian Woody always looks upset, man. That man always looks mad as hell when he's on First Take. It got to be because they don't have his favorite donuts at the morning meeting.
How much is Aaron Rodgers to blame for the Packers situation, Damian?
Aaron Rodgers has a lot to do with the struggles that the Green Bay Packers have been having. He's been pissed off since the preseason. Of course, he was upset that they let go of his favorite target. He was also upset that they let go of his quarterback coach. And a lot of the negative energy that he has allowed to openly emanate from him has infested various aspects of the team, because he is viewed as being that team. So if he does not have a positive outlook, the team is not going to do well.
Listen, he definitely shares some blame in this.
Yeah, he's been pissed ever since they got rid of Jordy Nelson.
This is a guy that when he's done playing, he's going to walk into the Hall of Fame. I think
first ballot, no doubt.
I think we're all in agreement on that. And from my perspective, we've consistently harped and said that Aaron Rodgers is the most gifted passer of football of this generation. We constantly heap praise on Aaron Rodgers when he makes spectacular plays. You know.
Let me say this though, Jared Goff and Pat Mahomes are on his ass, man. I'm going to give Aaron Rodgers this year as a mulligan, but come next year, if he's struggling at all, and Pat Mahomes is still out there throwing 45 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, he's going to have to pass that mantle over to Pat Mahomes or to Jared Goff.
Game after game after game. Well, guess what? There's a flip side to that. When you're not making the basic plays, because if anyone who's been watching the Green Bay Packers recently, you see Aaron Rodgers missing, rudimentary throws, got throwing balls in the dirt.
Yes, he's had a lot of missed throws this season. The only thing that I'll say about that is that he did injure his knee the first game of the season. That could be part of the reason, because that is his plant leg. Who knows? I'm not going to make any excuses for him. The only thing that I'm going to say is that based off of precedent, we know that Aaron Rodgers is one of the most accurate quarterbacks of all time, and he's not a dink and dunk guy like a Drew Brees. Aaron is not going to have any seasons where he completes 72 or 73% passing, because he likes to throw the deep ball.
What does that have to do with Mike McCarthy? Those are basic, fundamental type things that has nothing to do with play calling. Now, I'm not sitting here and absolving Mike McCarthy, because we all saw this coming probably a couple.
How ESPN going to show the one interception that he's throwing all year to try to act like he's having a bad season?
Couple years ago. But what I am saying is, with Aaron Rodgers, you're supposed to be the greatest quarterback and the best quarterback in the National Football League today. You're the highest paid quarterback in the National Football League, and you let the Arizona Cardinals, one of the worst teams in the NFL, come into Green Bay, quote unquote title town, and win a football game? How is this possible?
It's possible because Aaron Rodgers has no belief in the coach, so therefore the team has no belief in the coach. Everything starts from him.
Stephen, I'll ask you, how is this possible? I mean, this is your guy that you say is a bad man.
Now you're trying to send shots at Stephen A.
You constantly say he's a bad man. Should a bad man ever let a sorry Arizona Cardinals team come into Lambeau Field and get a W?
Well,
it's inexcusable.
You asked a question. That's a loaded question.
I agree. That's a very loaded question because we all know that Aaron Rodgers cannot play offense and defense. We know that for a fact. And he definitely cannot play special teams.
You should never allow it, but it's happened. And you know when it happens? When you're not on the same page, when you're distant from the team. That's
I agree.
One of the things that we have to pay.
And that's a problem also. People forget that the 1 year that Aaron Rodgers was able to win the Super Bowl, he was not viewed as being the leader of the team. Charles Woodson was the leader of that team back in 2010.
Pay attention to, and we can no longer deny. And people want to sit up there and we want to gloss over this and we want to act like this doesn't happen, but it does happen. And I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying it's reality.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is one of these hyper-intellectual figures in professional sports, and oftentimes they're very distant from their teammates. What the Green Bay Packers need is another great player who can act as a leader and a liaison between the team and Aaron can act as a liaison between that player and the head coach. But the head coach, whoever he may be, is going to have to be able to develop a great rapport with Aaron Rodgers.
As great as you are, sometimes when you're great and you're subjected to having to deal with mediocrity, and clearly he felt something along those lines about Mike McCarthy, it gets the better of you. When we have...
According to Jeff Saturday, who played with Aaron Rodgers for one season, Aaron Rodgers has not respected the coach Mike McCarthy, or at least the former head coach of the Green Bay Packers, for many years.
Repeatedly lamented the fact that throughout years, Aaron Rodgers has carried the Green Bay Packers franchise on his back. Yeah, they went to 8 straight playoff games. About 3 of those times they were 10-6. They should have been better. One of those years they were 8-7-1. They should have been better. But they were still in the postseason. There were 4 NFC championship games. There was a Super Bowl title in the Mike McCarthy era to speak of. But there were times that he came up flat. Yesterday it was obviously a glaring moment. The 2012 NFC divisional playoff game when Colin Kaepernick ran roughshod over them, just abused them, was another. But over the last 3 years, we've looked at Mike McCarthy and the Green Bay Packers, and we've said 2 things. Number one, the offense and their play calling is very predictable, and he was calling it. Remember, he gave up the responsibility and then took it back. And a lot of people were wondering about that because he was so suspect in that regard. It was too predictable over the last several years. And then number 2, we looked at their talent, and we said, wait a minute, why don't you find a way to surround this man with better talent? We can't bring up the new contract he just signed because he just signed it this past offseason.
Well, Stephen A. Smith, just to answer some of your questions, this is why I'm starting to accept more and more that Aaron Rodgers is the LeBron James of the NFL. Just like in LeBron's first tenure with the Cleveland Cavaliers, what would be the normal lamentation for LeBron? Well, LeBron is so good that Cleveland is winning every year, and they're not finishing high enough in the draft for them to be able to bring in other players to help LeBron James. That's what we would say. Well, in the same way, the Green Bay Packers, they've been around 9-7 to 12-4 every year other than this year during the time period that Aaron Rodgers has been their quarterback. So it's very difficult for them to finish high enough in the draft for them to bring in grade A talent. And then on top of that, no free agent wants to come to Green Bay. Not to a location that's about 98.8% Caucasian. I mean, come on. And has no places to hang out.
Season. The fact of the matter is there were many years where he wasn't getting paid that amount of dollars. They had enough opportunities to make things happen, and they fell short in free agency. So we look at them from the top on down, and we pointed to them and we say, hey, they ain't getting it done. And it was clearly elevating the level of frustration your star felt. You cannot ignore that. You got to take care of your star.
Listen, there's no question about that, and I will agree as far as Mike McCarthy is concerned.
Right now, if I'm Green Bay, I'm looking at Le'Veon Bell and also possibly seeing if I could put together a package to trade for a big-time wide receiver. Those 2 things will go a long way to help Aaron Rodgers.
Third, the one area that he's failed miserably, he hasn't evolved as a play caller. You look at, and he comes from a similar tree as
Well, you know what, Damian Woody? He probably has not felt like he needs to evolve because he has Aaron Rodgers. Sometimes when you have a brilliant player on your team, You use him too much as a crutch, and it stops your own growth.
It's like Andy Reid. All these guys, Sean McVay. All these guys come from a West Coast style offense. They run different versions of it. And what those guys have done is they have implemented aspects of the college game to exploit the.
You know what you're really saying? This separates the men from the boys. This separates the truly great from just the good in their own era. Who can adapt? Andy Reid and Bill Belichick still doing it. Greg Popovich still doing it.
Well, Andy Reid, I have to give a little bit more credit to in regards to his evolution than Bill Belichick, because Bill Belichick has been fortunate enough to have Tom Brady. And that's not to take anything away from Bill Belichick, because he has gone out of his way to try to learn about offenses and to stay ahead of the curve. But when it comes to Andy Reid has shown that, he can be the head of the curve. Fortunately for Andy Reid, he's probably gotten the most talented quarterback that he's ever had. I will give Patrick Mahomes, a rather discernible advantage over Donovan McNabb as probably being the most talented quarterback that Andy Reid has ever presided over. So now the real test for Andy Reid is, can he use this great talent that he has at quarterback to finally win the big one?
I bet you they don't like a lot of the changes that have happened in the game. What are they going to do? Cry about it? You got to adapt.
Some people are questioning that about Greg Popovich.
And the guys, we'll see. But and the guys who can't do it get stuck. Look at the Green Bay Packers record with Aaron Rodgers under center, okay? From his second season on, 11-5, 10-6, 15-1, 11-5. He won a Super Bowl along the way. He's making the playoffs all these years. 8-7 made the playoffs. 8-7-1. 12-4, 10-6, 10-6. Now all of a sudden 7-9 because he's hurt, and now 4-7. You know what's really changed along the way? What's actually changed? Because, McCarthy's been there the whole time. The league, number one, McCarthy hasn't adapted. Number two, Aaron Rodgers just got all the money, right? You know what's so important when all of a sudden your quarterback is getting paid that much money and there aren't the resources to go around to build quite the same kind of team? You need all the margins to go in your direction. Now, coaching inefficiencies and coaching ineffectiveness is going to be highlighted, because now you really need that. You're spending all that money on the quarterback. Boy, everything else better be working, because you don't have the same money to spread around that you once did.
Hold on. Now, here's my thing. Again, what we tend to do with quarterbacks is when they're playing great, we heap all the praise on them. But a lot of times with these guys, when they're not playing as well, we want to find different areas where things aren't going as well.
Well, it depends. It depends on if it's a great quarterback. If it's a great quarterback, then yes, people will try to make excuses for them, at least early on. Because sometimes with these quarterbacks, you're not quite sure if they're having a bad season or if they're just over the hill. When they get to that 34, 35-year-old range and they have a subpar year, nobody's really sure. So you bet on the quarterback because he's done it for so long. So, of course, Aaron Rodgers is going to be the recipient of the benefit of the doubt in the same way that Tom Brady has been, and Drew Brees and Peyton Manning before them. That's why, once again, that is how we know that next season is going to be a referendum on Mr. Aaron Rodgers.
And my problem here with this whole Aaron Rodgers, Mike McCarthy discussion is Aaron Rodgers has been playing with a similar type cast for many years. And everyone has always said, oh, man, have you seen what Aaron Rodgers did on this play and the things he's able to do with these type of players? But now that things aren't going well, we need to surround them with better players.
Well, that's not quite fair, Damian Woody. You know why? Because I think that what you're stating would have more credibility if he still had Jordy Nelson or if he still had Randall Cobb. Like you stated, the same players that he's had for years past. Now, he still has Devontae Adams, but he does not have those two weapons anymore. And there's been some contention over the quality of the running back. That's why I've stated that if I'm the Green Bay front office, of course, we have to get the coach, but we also have to bring in Le'Veon Bell, and we have to try to see, depending on our cap space, if we can either sign a receiver, draft one, or trade for one.
Everybody wants to throw. Now everybody wants to throw. Oh well, the personnel is bad, and it's like, well, why are we letting Aaron?
Stephen A. Smith, you better stop trying to talk with this man. He got about 3 inches in height and 300 pounds on you.
Aaron Rodgers off the hook here.
That man will put a slice of melted butter on the top of your head and pour some syrup on your shoulders. Eat you like a stack of pancakes.
That's not accurate, Damian.
Why is it not?
Because, Damian, you're one of the people that was on the record saying that he needed more help. I'm talking about before the season. But nobody's trying to absolve him for what he's not doing this year, because clearly the numbers have dipped. We get that. But many, many times in the past, I've heard you and other NFL analysts, along with myself on this show, talking about how how Aaron Rodgers doesn't have the requisite help that he needs. And we looked at the Green Bay Packers from an organizational perspective. That's undeniable. And what we want to shirk this. We want to sit up there and act like this isn't important. When you are the face of a franchise, it's important that that person is happy. It's important that
I agree with that.
He can't come into your office and you tell him to shut up and leave.
And beyond that, you're firing his quarterback coach and replacing offensive coordinators without speaking to him about it. I mean, that shows a lack of disrespect, complete disregard, as a matter of fact.
You play and we handle the organization, because what you're doing is you're asking him to be something more than just that talent. You're asking him to be somebody that galvanizes truth, that maximizes the limited potential around him, and to get everything out of it. When you ask somebody to do something like that and you don't take care of them, that's a problem. And with Mike McCarthy, in terms of what they had in place, they weren't taking care of him. Andy Reid has a great relationship with Patrick Mahomes, you know.
Well, I mean, let's be for real, Stephen A. Smith. We can't compare the rapport between Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers to the rapport between Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is a second-year player. Aaron Rodgers is 35 years old. So, who knows what the dynamic will be between Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in 7 years. They might be at one another's throat. Let Patrick Mahomes win some passing titles and a couple of MVPs. And all of a sudden, Andy Reid's going to find that some of his text messages and his calls might go unanswered.
Payton has a great relationship with Drew Brees, though. These guys vouch. When Phil Jackson to go on a different sport like you always do, and we talk about the greatness of Phil Jackson, it didn't help that Michael Jordan vouched for him and refused to play for anybody else. When you have the...
No, actually it didn't help, because Phil Jackson ended up getting let go anyway.
That you're Mike McCarthy, you got to make sure that you got that relationship with Aaron Rodgers.
Nobody's saying he's first to blame, but Aaron Rodgers can deserve some blame. He's not playing at a Pro Bowl level. He's not playing at a Pro Bowl level.
Molly Karam, look, Aaron Rodgers has 21 touchdowns, 1 interception. And pretty much everybody in the NFL goes to the Pro Bowl. Like half the guys in the NFL go to the Pro Bowl.
I think what's happening, you put him on another team with a different coach, I think he's still the best in the game. I think what's happening is...
Yeah, for now, I'll still agree with that Aaron is still pretty much the best in the game, but he's not the most outstanding in the game anymore. But I would love to see Aaron Rodgers work with the talent that the LA Rams have for Jared Goff, just to see how good he would look in that system.
Is when McCarthy's...
But you know what, again, just to once again reinforce that correlation of Aaron Rodgers to LeBron James, Aaron Rodgers is one of these guys who would almost prefer subconsciously to play on a team with lesser talent so that he would have somebody to blame if things don't turn out well. Very similar to a LeBron.
He's a good enough coach. Aaron Rodgers can take you there. But when the league changes and when you have McVay and these different guys doing it, and Reid who's figured stuff out and everything, all of a sudden, now Aaron Rodgers can't make up for the coach.
So you give him zero blame?
No, Aaron deserves about 40% blame for this. Maybe 30% blame, but somewhere in that 30 to 40 percentile, Aaron deserves blame. Because once again, I think that much like a LeBron James, he likes to utilize subterfuge and a lot of passive aggressive behavior. He's super intelligent, especially when it comes to football. So he knows how to, utilize certain machinations to blame McCarthy without blaming him, and then try to act like he's so sorry and contrite when the coach gets fired. Very similar to a LeBron. The only difference is that this is the first coach that Aaron Rodgers has gotten fired, and it's pretty much been because, Mike McCarthy was the one who polished the diamond that became known as Aaron Rodgers. They won a Super Bowl together. So it's a bit more difficult to get rid of Mike McCarthy, and it's much more difficult to win a Super Bowl than it is to win an NBA championship. Because, in the NFL, you have players who play offense and who play defense. In the NBA, all 5 players on the court have to play both offense and defense. So the impact that one great player can have in the NBA is much more effectual than what you have in the NFL.
Well, early in the season he was hurt, but recently I think if you swapped him out with Jared Goff, the Rams would get better. I think if you swapped him out with Mahomes...
It'd be close, though.
Home
No, that's not what I asked.
Wait a minute, hold
I just
on.
said
Michael,
zero
listen.
blame.
If you watch Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers play, okay, what I'm saying is we could talk about scheme and all those things. Aaron Rodgers is missing basic plays.
He is. He's missing a lot of basic throws.
I mean, passes that we've normally seen from Aaron Rodgers
That is
in the
also
past,
true.
where he is just flat out missing. It has nothing to do with scheme. It has everything to do with he's just missing
He
them.
has missed some throws that he normally hits. That is true.
Gotta leave it there.
Now, who knows? We may come to find out that maybe Aaron was missing those throws because he was trying to get Mike McCarthy fired. Who the hell knows? Remember last season, LeBron's last year with Cleveland, there was a stretch there where he was purposefully not playing to his optimum because it was very clear that he was trying to force a change. So once again, that is another link up that I noticed between Aaron Rodgers and LeBron James. Now, in the aftermath of McCarthy getting fired, if all of a sudden we see Aaron Rodgers completing 70% of his throws again and, connecting down the field on 50-yard bombs, where his receiver is able to catch the ball in between three defenders like we've seen in years past, then that might be a hint that maybe he did take a little bit of his foot off the gas to help get McCarthy the hell up out of there.
When we come back here.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. We'll see how things turn out for Aaron Rodgers. Peace.